Hard work is a talent.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com and at Yahoo Sports Australia. And you can find me as always on Twitter at redrock_bball and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. We are here to look back at the action from Sunday, get you caught up on some injury news as well, and then preview 9 games for Monday. Michael Bolton.
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it indeed. Let's start with the first game of the day from Sunday. The Philadelphia 76ers with a pretty comfortable victory over the Cavs, 114-95 in Cleveland. Tobias Harris was great. He had that weird stretch where he couldn't hit a shot, where he was sick for a couple of games, and now he comes out and hits basically every shot. 12 of 14 from the field, 27 points, 5 rebounds, and he added 4 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. When you get that sort of a performance from Toby Harris, you count yourself lucky. You don't expect that level of shooting from anyone, really. And then the defensive stuff is good as well. Simmons had 10 with 11 assists and 2 blocks. He only played 26 minutes, while Embiid only played 23. He had 14 and 4. Joel did in the game. It was just such a blowout. He didn't need to extend himself. Horford, 11, 6, and 7 with 2 steals and 2 blocks. Furkan Korkmaz, 18 minutes off the bench, 13 points with a 3. That's who he is. He's a 3 points and points type streamer, probably more a 14-team league streamer than a 12-teamer, but there is something there in him. Well, Joshy Richardson, this is a perfect buy low opportunity. People are really quick to get rid of Josh Richardson, so whenever he has a shit night, you go out there and you attempt that buy low. 8 points on 12 shots, 4 rebounds, no assists and no steals for Richo. Not much else there. The painter Matisse Thybulle played 16 minutes. He's a pretty clear drop in 12s and 14s and probably even 16-team leagues. He's just not in the rotation at the moment. And when he plays, normally we get those defensive numbers. But if he's not playing, he can't rack them up and then he's of no value to you from a fantasy point of view. On the Cavs, Kevin Love did hurt his knee, but he returned to the game. 25 minutes, 12 and 6. Not the greatest Kevin Love performance. He says he's going to be ready to go for Monday, so that looks like potentially crisis averted there. Tristan Thompson, 12 and 9. The 3 blocks are really nice, but again, overall in this game, everyone's minutes were reduced just because of how much of a blowout it was. With Larry Nance out, Alfonso McKinney stepped up, 21 minutes, 7 points and 6 rebounds, and Ante Žižić also played 17 minutes, his first minutes for the season after being out with that foot injury. He had not much, 6 and 2 in 17 minutes with Nance and Henson out. You'd expect when those guys come back, he's just not going to see the court. Darius Garland, 25 minutes, 11 points. The 2 steals are nice. The minutes are okay. The shooting's bad. Look, his value at the moment's not good. His upside is getting there. He is someone that you should have at least in the discussion as someone to look to add in a 12-teamer, but far from a must-roster guy, but definitely someone with some longer-term potential. Well, at this point, Colin Sexton sort of is who he is. 17 points on 17 shots, 4 rebounds, and an assist. Like, this is just what he does. We're not going to get big numbers in any of those other peripheral categories from Sexo. I don't think that's changing at any point soon. The next game was a really close one, actually. The Celtics go down to the Kings, their 10-game win streak over 100-99 as Marcus Smart's last-second floater bounced on the rim a couple of times and fell out. Jaylen Brown's strong form continued, 18 and 8 with 4 threes and 2 steals. Didn't get to the free throw line, but his free throw shooting has been much improved this season. He's a must-roster guy, as is Marcus Smart, despite this horrible shooting night. 5 points for Smart on 2 of 16 shooting. That's Jason Tatum level bad. That's Mike Conley level bad. That might cause people to drop Smart. He still had 9 assists. He had a steal. He had 5 rebounds. I would scoop him up in every situation if he's dropped. Well, Jason Tatum, he's sort of average at the moment. He did hurt his ankle at one point in this game. Didn't come out. 14 and 6 in 30 minutes. I worry about whether he can ever get to be a top 20 player. Not this season, but even in the future. What's that thing that's going to really sky? Will he ever be a 25-point per game guy? Will he ever give you 5 assists or 9 boards or 1.5 steals and a block? Like, I just can't see it for any of those. Will he ever be a 8 free throw attempt guy and 85%? I don't see any of those things for Tatum, who looks good. He's like a Rudy Gay fantasy contributor. I've used that comparison plenty of times. Vanilla Tice got the start at center, 23 minutes for Tice, 14 and 10. He looked pretty good. He is, at this point, the best of the three centers out of him, Enes Kanter, and the Rock DJ, Robbie Williams. With those guys cannibalizing each other's playing time, it is hard to rely upon any of them for 12-team value. Tice is more of a 14 to 16er, as is Kanter, while Williams only played 7 minutes here. 1 point and 3 rebounds. And again, I say this a lot as well. People, later in the season, don't worry, he's going to play 25 and I honestly just don't see it with Rob Williams. And you might be wanting to hold him. I am not. I don't see it there. Now, occasionally he can be on a Sunday, a stream guy. Hey, let's get some blocks. If you streamed him today, it was terrible. But it is worth that look just in case something happens. But he seems to be a fair way down the list. Interestingly, Grant Williams out of the rotation today. As for Kanter, a lot of people have him in 12-team leagues. He would not be someone I would have on a 12-team league roster. For the Kings, Buddy Hield he was big. He was massive. 35.7 triples, 4 steals, a block, 6 rebounds. Great to get that sort of performance from Hield. No free throw attempts, though, but otherwise pretty strong. While Bogdanovic, 12 points with 10 assists and 2 steals. He's a must-roster player across all leagues. When Fox returns, I don't know what they're going to do, but we are still five weeks probably away from Fox returning. Hopefully what we're seeing from Bogdanovic here will be enough to show Walton, hey, shit, I shouldn't have been playing this bloke 20 minutes a game. Like, he needs to be playing this level of playing time, and then he can solidify himself as that top 100 guy. Strong Nemanja Bjelica performance, 12 and 14 in 31 minutes, but not a guy that I think we should look at as a 12-teamer. While Richaun Holmes struggled a little bit, but still had 2 blocks of 9 points, 11 rebounds, and I believe firmly that he is a 12-team guy and probably a 10-team format player as well. Corey Joseph, if you added him with the Fox News, you can pretty comfortably drop. He's just a piss-poor permanent producer. 2 points, 3 assists, while Yogi Kevin Farrell had 2 points in his 17 minutes, and Trevor Ariza returned from his groin issue and played 15 minutes and went scoreless. Shout out to Trevor Ariza. The next game up for us to take a look at, we've got the Washington Wizards and the Orlando Magic. 121-125. The Magic get the win. For the Wizards, Brad Beal, 40 minutes. Now, his minute load is a massive concern for me. He is averaging 40 minutes a game over the last week or so. 34, 6, and 8 with 5 triples. And there's a couple of things that happen here. Could he get injured? Sure. Is his team shit enough that he sees those minutes reduced in the fantasy playoffs? Yep. I would be definitely looking if I could get someone of equivalent value that's a second-round type of a player, whether that's a Devin Booker, a Kemba Walker, a Jimmy Butler. I would make those trades for, if I had Beal, like immediately. There's just too many minutes being played by him. Tom Bryant, the tank, 14, 6, and 4. He did come into this game with a hip issue. Still, played through it, but the minutes were down. And of course, behind him, Flaming Mo Wagner, who, let's be honest, with his production in these limited minutes, he's actually a 12-team guy. Now, is he a must-roster 12-team league guy? No. But is he a guy that we can at least look at and go, well, for this short term, he's providing value. If Bryant goes down, it's all hell will break loose. He's not a guy that plays next to Tom Bryant. I think they could explore that, but they won't because they've got Bertans and Rui Hachimura at power forward. But even in his limited minutes, his usage is up, his efficiency's up, his defensive stats are up, Wagner, and he's putting up some good numbers. So look, in 14 teamers, he's a must-roster guy. Mo, who's rostered in only 26% of leagues, so he is available. Isaiah Thomas had 13 with 5 assists in 29 minutes. Look, let's get it straight. He's never going to be the guy from the Celtics. It's never going to happen, but he's good enough to be a 10 and 12 team league player, while Rui Hachimura is not. 28 minutes, 6 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. I cannot stress enough that I don't think this guy will ever amount to being a very good player. He's not a good player now. His game is extremely limited. And if you want someone else in a 10, in no way is he a 10-team league player. In a 12, he's really on the borderline. He can have the good nights. He has the bad nights. But when he has the bad nights, he offers nothing else. And that's always a problem. While Troy Brown, 2.7 rebounds. I like the idea of Brown in theory. The minutes aren't there, the production isn't there, and again, if you're looking to stream in someone, whether that is the lubricant Kai Bowman for the Warriors, whether you're looking at Willie Cauley-Stein short-term over there, any of these guys, Markelle Fultz, like they're guys that I would have over Troy Brown. Let's go on to this Magic team. Vucevic, 30, 17, and 6. Another one of those guys who started out slowly and is absolutely rolling at the moment. But let's talk Markelle Fultz. Career night for Fultzy, 19 points in 26 minutes, 2 triples, 2 assists, and a steal. 8 of 10 shooting. Now, let's get this straight. The 8 of 10 shooting is not going to stick. We're all well aware of that. He was 2 of 3 from three-point land. That's probably not going to stick either. But the production, the way he played, the steal at the end, he just looks like at some point, whether that's in a month's time, we're going to be getting 30 minutes a night out of him. And with what he's doing at the moment with his steals, the occasional scoring, the threes, some assists, there is enough 12-team league value in Fultz to have him. And I think he should be a 12-team league guy. Now, on the flip side, I could look at this and say, well, he only played 26 minutes. He was having a career night. He couldn't miss. DJ Augustin got hurt and Michael Carter-Williams got hurt, and he still played only 26 minutes. Yeah, that's annoying. That's frustrating, and that's concerning. But hearing Steve Clifford speak about him, you get the feeling that it's only a matter of time before these minutes push up, and the production now is enough to hold on. Like, I would have him over, say, Darius Garland that we talked about earlier, and we're just waiting for that breakout to come. John Isaac was out, so Al-Farouq Aminu started again.
Sometimes it may be good, sometimes it may be shit.
If you ever doubt the veracity of that audio drop, just go and check Aminu's last two starts. Like that's all you need to do. 6 and 6 here in those 32 minutes. He was literally out of the rotation before Isaac hurt his ankle. What was he doing? Looking at a new jersey, at the jersey unveiling. It was such a weird injury. Aminu is just a short-term stream type of guy. Well, Terry Ross, since he rested those couple of games for a sore knee, has been really, really strong. 15 points, 4 rebounds, 2 steals, hitting a 3 as well. He's pushing himself back into that 12-team league discussion. While Evan Fournier, firmly there. 25 points, 5 threes, 9 assists. Started out red hot, dropped off, back to being hot again. He is looking much better this season than what he did last year, and he is an interesting 12-team league guy this season. Next game that was on Sunday, we've got, which one was that? It was the Denver Nuggets and the Memphis Grizzlies, another big blowout. The Blue Arrow, Jamal Murray, 39 points, 8 assists, 3 steals, 1 block, 7 triples, 4 of 4 from the line, no turnovers, a fantastic night. Now, Murray, like his teammate Big Chungus, Nikola Jokic, they often start slowly and then get rolling. Maybe this is the start of the roll for Murray. Well, Paul Millsap only played 20 minutes, but bloody hell, he was good. 23 points, 5 steals, 2 triples. Millsap has been a massive surprise to me this season, and he probably should be a 12-team league guy. As for Big Chungus, I thought he looked really good out there. 8 assists, 9 points, 5 rebounds, and that's not a great fantasy line, but he looked good. He only played 26 minutes, and to me, he is still a huge buy low. While interesting changes in the rotation. Malik Beasley out of the rotation. In his place, or Torrey Craig also out. In their place, Juancho Hernangomez, and the other guy that's just slipped my mind. Oh, of course, Mike Porter Jr. Hernan Gomez played 29 minutes, 15 points, 4 triples and 2 assists. I don't think we need to really buy into that, but he is in the rotation. Beasley, a guy that's a limited fantasy player anyway. He scores and he can do it efficiently and does absolutely nothing else and needs 35, 36 minutes to really be a top 100-ish sort of a player. He's obviously not getting that. I saw people that with him being out of the rotation say, oh, maybe this is a good time to stash him because he'll get traded and he find himself in a bigger role. I just don't see what team he goes to that he finds himself in this role that then it's worth stashing, waiting 2 months for this to maybe happen because the upside's not that high. It's not like, hey, if he gets 30 minutes, we're looking top 30 player. Like, I just don't see that for Bees. Gaz Harris.
Nice, Gary!
8 points for Gaza. Look, he was efficient. 57% from the field. That's strong. But 1 rebound, 1 assist, super low usage, minutes were down. I don't really think I see the upside for Harris. So if you do want to move on from him, I totally understand that. The 150th ranked player this season, maybe he can be a top 120 guy, maybe. But to me, in a 10 team, and that's not high enough to want to hold. And even in a 12, if you're getting desperate, like holding on to this nonsense, is it really worth it? Maybe. Like the steals are fine, but you could maybe switch in a Delon Wright who gets the steals as well. There are plenty of other steal options around against, or rather than Gaz Harris, who is really struggling to find his spot in this rotation. Not his spot in the rotation in terms of the flow of the offense is what I mean. Will Barton, 24 minutes, 6, 5, and 3. Last couple of games haven't been that good for Barton. He will be better than this. He also won't be as good as what he was at the start of the season. He is a 12-team league guy. I probably do have him preferenced slightly over Harris at this point, but Harris's form probably increases a bit. Barton's probably drops off a bit, and they're going to be, I think, relatively similar. If you could have sold Barton after that little stretch of top 35 type production, that would have been a great move. For the Grizzlies, Valanciunas only 22 minutes with 16 and 10. Jaren Jackson only 24 minutes with 25 points with 5 triples. And Ja Morant 13, 2, and 6. Minutes were down right across the board. Same as Dylan Brooks, who had 4 points in 18 minutes. This guy is going to wrestle that He's going to wrestle the sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit moniker away from Al Farouk Aminu. He'd been pretty solidly good, though, to be fair to him. And then he just chucks in an absolute turd burger from on occasion. More of a 14-teamer than a 12-team guy. D'Anthony Melton, I like this guy in Phoenix, but only played garbage time here. 10 and 4, 2 threes, 1 steal, 1 block. That's super impressive in 11 minutes. But he just doesn't get those rotation minutes. And when Grayson Allen returns, it's going to be harder for him to do it. While Brandon Clark didn't miss a shot, except when he was at the line. 19 points, 5 rebounds, 2 threes. The blocks have dried up a little bit for Clark, but his efficiency is fantastic, and he probably does deserve a spot on a 12-team roster. Jay Crowder, he's just not interesting to me as a 12-team league guy. Next up, we had just an absolute weird-ass game. The New Orleans Pelicans and the Golden State Warriors. The Pelicans win 108-100. For the Warriors, they went with an unconventional starting lineup. Draymond Green was their starting point guard, so that moved the triangle Eric Paschall back up to power forward. He started along with Cauley Stein, Glenn Robinson, and Alec Burks. Cauley Stein, 3 steals and a block is pretty interesting. 9 points in 25 minutes, but the fact that he's only playing 25 minutes with Kevon Looney out makes you think that when Looney actually does return, look, if he ever returns, the Cauley Stein's numbers are going to disappear. As for the triangle, 30 points for Paschall, 7 rebounds, 2 threes, super high usage, super high efficiency. He was 59 from the field, 8 of 10 from the line, and he's had a few of these games, but again, when Russell returns, like that usage won't be there. That'll push Draymond more to power forward. Can they survive with Paschall playing at small forward all the time? He's fine to add for now, no doubt, but I worry with the lack of peripherals and heavy reliance on high efficiency, high usage lines, whether that actually can continue. Draymond was bad, 7 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, and a block on 2 of 10 shooting. But again, as we normally say, like give him an extra 2 shots there, maybe make 40% from the field. Then we're talking 11, 6, 4, 2, 1. And it's a very Draymond-ish sort of a line. I'm not dropping him. Green always has lower value in points leagues and category leagues, and if you're in a shallow-ass points league, then maybe you do want to consider dropping him, but I wouldn't be doing it in any category leagues. Alec Burks stunk, 7 points on 13 shots, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, but again, the 13 shots, the 30 minutes, they're the encouraging things. He's not going to be a 2 of 13 shooter. He could be a 6 of 13 shooter. You add an extra 8 points on there, that's 15, 4, and 5, and you go, I'll take that. That's okay as a 12-teamer. While the lubricant Kai Bowman, 19 points in his 28 minutes, 4 assists, 3 threes, even coming off the bench, that's still enough minutes and enough production to be a short-term 12-team league guy with D'Angelo Russell sidelined. For the Pelicans, they were without Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, Derek Favors, Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, Jaleel Okafor, and Frank Jackson. So getting any sort of indication from this game as to what it means moving forward is foolish. It's impossible. Drew Holiday, 22, 8, and 9, a steal and a block. Shot poorly. It could have been a monster. It was great. It was great. Anyway, but still could have been better. JJ Redick, 36 minutes. Fantastic. 26 points. 6 triples. Lovely, lovely, lovely. But go and look a week ago, and he was playing 22 minutes and doing absolutely nothing. All of these injuries, Ball, Hart, Jackson, Ingram, those 4 guys out have really elevated Redick again. He's a short-term guy, but if you want to get him, sell him for a top 80 guy. I'd be very, very interested. Now, I would never accept Redick back, but someone might. They might get blinded by this recent production. Jaxson Hayes, he made his first NBA start, a double-double in 32 minutes, had the 3 blocks, but of course, no Favors, no Okafor, and no Zion. Zion's not back anytime soon, but that's another guy in that mix there. I think I could make the argument pretty comfortably that Hayes will be the backup center over Okafor, but Favors was pretty strong before he did have that back stiffness, so I'm not rushing to add Hayes outside of a short-term stream. While Kenny Williams, 36 minutes, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. The upside, look, he's getting all the minutes, all the time he can handle, and it's just not translating into enough numbers. And he might have a big game next time out, but I just don't see it as we move long-term. Well, Nicole O'Malley had 16 points in 27 minutes, another guy who's likely to be out of the rotation. Let's talk Nickeil Alexander-Walker, 2 big games in a row, but of course we have to have the caveat. Ball, Hart, Jackson, Ingram, Favors, Williamson, all these guys are ahead of him in the rotation. He played well, 19, 5, and 4, 5 triples, took a lot of shots, didn't hit them all that efficiently, but there is not enough here to make me go, well, Alexander-Walker has jumped ahead of Hart and Ball and Jackson, and is going to be getting these shots ahead of them and these minutes ahead of them, and that will drop off pretty bloody quickly. Etuan Moore was bad, and he won't be in the rotation. This game saw 12 minutes from 2 guys called Josh Gray and Zylan Cheatham, if you are interested in how weird this actual game was for the Pelicans against those Golden State Warriors. Let's move on to the last game of the night. The Atlanta Hawks, they cop another smashing in LA. The Lakers win 121-101. This game was over really early on. Trae Young, he still performed 31 points on 50% shooting, 7 assists, 2 steals. His steal rate, really interesting. He had a pretty high steal rate in college, dropped off last season. It's back up again this year. This is going to, I think, if he can keep this up, and it's a small sample, of course, but if he can keep this up, this will cement him as a first-round player for many, many seasons to come. Jabari Parker, the shooting wasn't there, 11 points on 16 shots, but 4 steals, 1 block, 8 rebounds. His value when Collins comes back is going to be one of the most intriguing things we see. Before the suspension, Collins played 30% of his minutes at center. So say Collins plays 33 minutes, then by definition, 30% is 11 minutes of those at center. And that enables, then that means he's playing 22 minutes at power forward. So that's 26 minutes available there at power forward for Parker, assuming Vince Carter doesn't play, which you could see that Carter, you wouldn't want to play him as much. But say they play Collins 40 minutes, 45 minutes at center, that could enable Parker to get to 30 minutes at power forward. So he's a must-roster guy now, and then that could stick later on. Now it might not. He might go back to 22 minutes a night, but with the way he's playing, we'll see how this goes. But he's been really strong. Damo Jones, another start. Not the best night, but still 4 rebounds, a triple-1, a block shot, and most importantly, 26 minutes. As a short-term center option, he is right up there with a guy like an Ivica Zubac, perhaps, behind a Cody Zeller, but pushing himself into that discussion. Bruno Fernando played just 13 minutes, while Alex Len, that little run of big games off the bench, the last 2 have been stinkers, just 15 minutes for Len here and 3 points. Cam Reddish, 3 steals are great, and I think his defense has been really strong in the NBA. The shooting has been, in general, bad. He was not great here, 39%, but 13 points with a triple. That's at least something to look at. For assists and steals, he's providing some okay streaming value. His shooting is disastrously bad most games, and I worry that he's ever going to be a solid enough NBA player. But there is some value there, and this is what we talked about with him in the preseason. His ability to get steals makes him marginally interesting, and maybe even more interesting than his teammate DeAndre Hunter, who I just don't see as a very good fantasy player. 11 points in 34 minutes for Hunter, 2 triples, no defensive numbers, 2 boards. He is not a 12-team league guy to me. Bembry struggled his way through to 18 minutes. Alan Crabb played 15 minutes. Really not a great night for the Hawks in general. On to the Lakers. LeBron James, 33, 7, and 12.
LeBron James.
He hit 6 triples, 62% from the field, only got to the line once, but a great night from LeBron. While Anthony Davis had 14 points, only the 1 rebound. It's a weird night for Davis, 28 minutes. 5 blocks does help. The shooting was way off. And I've had some weird things happen over the last, probably in the last 20 minutes before me recording this, and I just use this. I'm not using the person's name to illustrate the way that people view things. I had someone send me a message saying Anthony Davis has been the biggest bust of the year. Right, now, I obviously wholeheartedly disagree with that. Before this game, Anthony Davis was ranked 4th in fantasy value. Before the season, I had him ranked 3rd. That's, pretty much exactly where he is. Now, his production hasn't been anywhere near the level that he was as a member of the Pelicans. That's to be expected when you're playing alongside LeBron James. And we talked about that the numbers will probably come down, but still have him in that top 5 level, which is exactly where he is. But I use this to illustrate the point, is that if you want to go and throw a buy low offer at someone who's got Anthony Davis because they think he's a bust or they're frustrated with what he's doing, that opportunity exists. Now, majority of you, probably 90% of you listening, 95% of you will be going, that's not happening. Anthony Davis isn't a bust. He's doing fine. He's putting up numbers, and that's not happening. But there are people that think that way, much like as I recorded Locked On NBA today. I was talking about James Harden being on fire. The bloke's averaging 45 points a game over his last 7. He's averaging 40 over the course of the season. My heading was James Harden is on fire. The bloke wrote back, no, he's not. Excuse me. No, he actually is. He unequivocally is on fire. No, he's not. He took too many shots. He took 15 threes. So what? But there's always someone who'll have a differing view to what seems like something you can't argue against. I don't see how you could argue that James Harden is on fire, but someone finds a way to argue against it. So that's why, there's things like, Josh, these are unrealistic trade scenarios. These things will never happen. People have weird views, weird thoughts, and capitalizing on them. Now, it probably never happens, and it's really hard to execute these things, but there are people who have, even though I don't see how you could ever argue that James Harden isn't on fire, averaging 45 points a game or whatever he's averaging. 40 over the course of the season. Like, I don't know how you argue against that, but people do. And that's what I'm saying. Anthony Davis is the biggest bust of the season. I don't see how you see that, but someone does. So taking advantage of that is important. On to the rest of the Lakers. Kyle Kuzma, the future MVP, had 17 points with 3 triples in 26 minutes and had a block and hit 3 threes, and I don't think he's a 12-team league guy. Now, people will have differing opinions to me on that, and they'll think he's a 12-team league guy. I don't. I encourage discussion. I am never one here to say that everything that I say is right, because it clearly isn't. I don't think that Kuzma's a 12-team league guy. I could be wrong on that. I've been wrong on plenty of things before. I also still don't think he's a 12-team league guy, much like I don't think Rajon Rondo is. Now, Rondo scored well, played alongside LeBron James quite a bit, 15 points in 24 minutes, had 3 assists. He's an assists stream sort of a player. The offense was a pleasant surprise. Last game, he was a disaster for the Lakers, but really strong here. I'm not looking at him as a 12-team league ad. KCP started again in place of Avery Bradley, 13 points in 21 minutes. Dan Green stuffed the box score. 11 and 7 for Green with 3 triples, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. Green's value, if he's getting steals and blocks at that level, then he's a 12-team league guy. If he doesn't, he isn't. I think he's more of a fringe 14-team league guy like Kuzma and like Rondo. And then you got those other guys like Bradley and KCP who are in deeper league formats. Only the 15 minutes for McGee. When Davis plays, it's hard to have any value there with him. But the 2 steals and 2 blocks, a perfect blocks type streamer. While Dwight Howard's value has fallen off considerably. He had 3 blocks, another blocks stream option. 2 points in 24 minutes for Dwight with 9 boards. And I think a lot of these Lakers, McGee, Rondo, Kuzma, Howard, they are all, Danny Green, they are all waiver wire guys, I think, in 12-team leagues, not players that you need to consider must roster options. All right, let's look at some injury updates now. Across the NBA, D'Angelo Russell with that thumb injury happened over the weekend. He's going to be out for a minimum of 2 weeks. We talked about how the Warriors look today with the lubricant Kai Bowman coming off the bench. He's okay as a 12-teamer. The triangle, Eric Paschall's got some value, Alec Burks, but I think a lot of the time, especially with Bowman and Burks, it's just going to be sort of back and forwards with those guys. Jordan Poole, just nothing to do with him in 12s or probably even 14-team leagues. Otto Porter's foot, it appears relatively serious. We don't actually know what the problem is. But Boylan said it's going to be weeks and not months. And while that's great that he's not going to be months, I wasn't ever thinking it was going to be months. God, shit, Porter's going to be out months. I never thought that. But him to say, oh yeah, it's not too bad, it's going to be weeks. Like, that is a scary thing. And again, in a shallow league, in an 8-teamer, I'd be okay dropping Porter. In a 10-teamer, it really is on the borderline. I think he could be a drop option there. In a 12-teamer, look, if you're stacked with injuries, if you've got Fox and Hayward, you've got Collins or Ayton, and Porter's there as your 3rd injured guy who's out multiple weeks, get rid of him. In that similar tone of like what Levert is. But if he's your only injured guy, then you hold on to him. Malcolm Brogdon has a back injury. He's missed 1 game. He's going to be ruled out again for Monday. That's giving some short-term value to Aaron Holiday, and if McConnell plays, it gives him a slight boost, but that's not a long-term thing. Will Barton had a groin issue. He played through it today. He wasn't good. That is something for us to watch to see whether that bothers him moving forward. And Avery Bradley has that leg fracture. Bradley was not a 12 or a 14 or probably not a 16-team league guy. His absence is going to give some deeper league value to Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Alex Caruso and Rondo as well. But that's not really having too much of an impact on 12-team formats. And then we look at some other ones there. Kevin Love hurt his knee today. He returned to the game. Michael Carter-Williams hurt his hip. He left the game and didn't return. That will give more minutes to guys like Ross and to guys like Wes Iwundu. Kawhi Leonard listed as questionable again with his knee. Now, Doc did say over the weekend that he would definitely be playing in the Clippers next game, and then the Clippers official medical report came out listing him as questionable. That is obviously some level of concern there with Kawhi, who sat out the back-to-back and then missed the next game, which wasn't a back-to-back, and now is questionable again, while Patrick Beverley also has missed the last game for the Clippers and could be out again. That gives some streaming value to someone like Terrence Mann and to Mo Harkless there for the Clippers if those situations arise where Leonard and Beverley don't play. Let's flip it over now, talk some DFS action. We're looking at DraftKings. We're looking at all 9 games for Monday. So let's start talking about those now. All right, we're looking at DraftKings pricing today. The first game up on this 9-game slate, the Cleveland Cavaliers and the New York Knicks in New York. The Knicks favored by 2. Last time out, Cleveland had a big victory here. The total is 209. Kevin Love said he would play after having that knee problem on Sunday, so that he should be good to go. Mitchie Robinson hurt his ankle last time out for the Knicks, but he apparently is ready to go as well. We don't know the status of Larry Nance, who's got that thumb issue, and Johnny Henson should be back at any point soon. We just don't know at this point. So there's quite a few up in the airs with those big men for the Cavs, and that could help boost the value of someone like Tristan Thompson or maybe even an Alfonso McKinney who played some minutes on Sunday. At point guard, AJ Barrett. 5,600. I really like that for Barrett. He's averaging 32 over the last three. That's a super low price. Assuming Fizdale doesn't screw him around, which is a big assumption, Barrett should be able to put up those numbers pretty consistently. While Frankie Ntilikina, Alfred Payton is out again. Ntilikina's at 4,100. He put up 24 points last game. He is a guy that really just thrives on the defensive numbers. I feel okay about him if he doesn't get into foul trouble. We saw last game they just refused to play Dennis Smith. But of course, it's Fizdale, so I wouldn't be putting exclusive Ntilikina locks into all my lineups because just don't know what's going to happen. As for Sexland, for Cleveland, Darius Garland's at 4,100 only for tournaments, while Colin Sexton at 5,700. I don't mind that value for cash. Sexton seems to be able to get there. Can he ever get higher than that? That's always the concern. Well, Jordy Clarkson's at 46, and he feels like almost a minimum 23-point guy. Maximum 26, but minimum 23, which is not a bad cash option. For your shooting guards, not much there. Kevin Porter, Damo Dotson. At small forward, Marcus Morris is at 5,900. Probably a little bit too rich for my liking, so I'd move in a different direction there. The direction wouldn't be towards Chetty Osman or Kevin Knox, but I would definitely move to a different direction. And for the big men, Mitchie Robinson, 54. I am all ready for him to take it from here.
Mitch Robinson says, I'll take it from here.
That's good news because he had 39 points last game in 27 minutes. I'm not worried about the ankle. I'm worried about the guy in the suit and glasses and the foul trouble, but 5,400 is a pretty no-brainer price. While Tristan Thompson at 56, also strong value. Julius Randle, only reason I don't think he's really a cash guy is the added salary, but he can easily drop a 50, and at 66, that makes him okay. Kevin Love on a back-to-back, I'm not keen on. Punch Bob's at 45, not interested in Portis there either. Nance, Gibson, John Henson, of course, the Muppet. If he plays, I don't think there's much to see with either or any of those guys. Next up, the Hornets and the Raptors. The Raptors are 9-point favorites. The total 215.5 points. At point guard, we've got Terry Rozier at 6,300. Rozier's been giving us around that mark most nights. I don't think he's the best play on the board. While Devontae Graham at 6,900.
Giggity.
Probably a better option, but still, that's maybe pushing a little bit high for Graham. Now, he's averaging almost 40 over the last 5, so definitely not an outrageous pick. The Raptors defensively might be somewhat of a problem, though. Well, Freddles Van Vliet, 7,400, averaging 45 over the last 5. You know he's going to play a shitload of minutes. Like, that's pretty much locked in and set in stone. So I think that 40 points for Van Vliet is worth looking at. While Malik Monk's at 5,000, really, really good stuff from Monk over the last couple of games. I'm not sure I'm ready to trust it at this point, given the way the rotation's been running in Charlotte, but there is at least something there to look at. Nick Batum, his first game back, 27 points in 29 minutes at 4,300, and at 4,300, that sort of production's great. Do I trust that level of playing time? God, no. I don't think he's going to be playing 29 a night every night. I think there may have been an element of flukiness in that last time. You got Storm and Norman Powell at 52, who I think is actually a relatively decent floor cash guy, but that's really about it. At small forward, Miles Bridges has been atrocious, under 20 over the last 5. He's at 4,300, and that's why I'm interested. A $1,300 price drop for Bridges makes him for a GPP absolutely like a 35, 40-point upside. Probably won't get there, but that GPP value at that price is super interesting.
Hello there.
The Jedi, OG Anunoby, 4,600. Disappointing first game back from an eye problem, just 15 points. That was more like the old OG. I'm not ready to jump back on him there. While Hollis Jefferson probably isn't going to be able to maintain that $4,700 price point. Big man Marc Gasol's at 55.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Yeah, maybe for tournaments. Cody Zeller at 51, again, maybe for tournaments. I'm not super interested in them. The water boy, Chris Boucher, really fizzled the last couple. He's at 38, so it's interesting that he's come all the way back down. That at least puts him back into tournament discussion, but with how Rondé's been playing, it has really limited Boucher's upside these last couple, while Paul Washington Jr. at 5,300. Got his minutes back last game. The production was fine. That's a strong enough price for Washington. And I think he's interesting enough at that salary. While Paschall Siakam is at $9,000. the last couple haven't been the right level for Siakam, averaging 42 over his last 3. Efficiency really killed the last performance from Siakam, but I do like him in this one here against the Hornets. Let's go on to the next game. We're looking at the Indiana Pacers and the Brooklyn Nets. Malcolm Brogdon is listed as out for the Pacers. Domantas Sabonis has cropped up with an injury, a hip problem. He's questionable. Jeremy Lamb is questionable. Timothy John McConnell is questionable as well. While for the Nets, we know that Karis LeVert is out and Kyrie Irving is questionable with his shoulder impingement. Of course, if Irving is out, Joe Harris, Spencer Dinwiddie, Janan Musa, all those guys get a boost. Theo Pinson, perhaps. And then for the Pacers, if you have Sabonis out, then Turner's value jumps right up. With Brogdon out, and then if McConnell is out, you get Aaron Holiday really stepping up, maybe even Justin Holiday, although he has been pretty trash for the last couple of seasons. At point guard, Kyrie's at 85. I have no trust in using him. As Holiday's at 55. Look, if McConnell's out, Azar at 55, I think he's a really good play. He's going to be rostered in quite a few spots and his salary's up, but there's still something there. But if McConnell does play, he's at 35. I might be inclined to switch it over to Timothy over there rather than using Aaron Holiday, saving my 2,000 and hoping for a 23-24 pointer from TJ. I think that's a distinct possibility. Dinwiddie's at 6,000. I like it and I love it if Kyrie is out. And then we go on to some shooting guards. Jeremy Lamb at 6,000. Really tough to trust him. We just don't know if he's going to play with that ankle problem. Well, smoking Joe Harris at 54. Love it, especially again if Kyrie is sidelined. Garrett Temple and Justin Holiday, they don't really do too much for me. 3,600 for Janan Musa. He had 25 points in 29 minutes last game. That 29 minutes is the most intriguing thing, and the shots didn't even fall. And if they had it, he contributed in multiple categories, and that's always a good base at that low of a salary. He is a GPP option, while the artist formerly known as Torian Prince is at 5,300. He has been subpar, but still subpar averaging 25 is not bad. So I do think that he is someone we look at here, especially if Kyrie is out, while Tony Warren Jr. is at 57. Again, a pretty strong cash play guy. For the big men, Sabonis is at 7,300. With the doubts on his hip with the return of Miles Turner, it's hard to utilize him there. Jarrett Allen at 49, I like that. He should beat that number unless there's weird foul trouble. While Miles Turner at 61 looks like an absolute smash play, especially given the matchup, and double especially if Sabonis happens to sit this one out. DeAndre Jordan's at 57. I don't mind Jordan at that price. I'd rather these other guys like Turner and Allen, who are either significantly cheaper in Allen's case or significantly better in Turner's case. Nicky Claxton has been playing all right, but not really enough to justify our usage in DFS. Next up is the Blazers and the Rockets. No Carmelo Anthony, but both Clint Capella and Danny House have both been upgraded to probable for the Rockets, so that's going to influence the rotation over there. At point guard, Westbrook missed the last game. He'll be back. He's at 8,300. His numbers have been way down, averaging just 36 over the last 5, so I'm not keen on him. While Lillard's down to 8,600. The last couple have been a little bit quiet from Lillard. Prior to that, he was absolutely scorching, so I'm okay with using him at that 8,600 mark. Jimmy Harden's at 12. Look, he's literally unbelievable what he's doing at the moment, averaging a cool 69 points.
Giggity!
Over his last 5. You feel good about using him always. While CJ McCollum, 7,300, really hot at the moment. In McCollum's case, 3 big games in a row normally means a real turd burger is going to come, so I will use him with a significant amount of trepidation, while Anthony Simons at 43. Very much the opposite of, say, a Janan Musa, is that if the shot doesn't fall, there's nothing else there. And that's always the worry from a DFS point of view. Austin Rivers, Chrissy Clemens, both of those guys thrived last game with both Westbrook and House out. That won't be the case here. Shooting guard, Bazemore at 3,900. 17 minutes last game, so really hard to rely upon him with Rocket Rodney Hood back. Speaking of Rocket, he's at 47. I see no interest there. While Benny McLaughlin had scored 20 in each of the last 2 games, 20 real-life points, but that's with House out. So with House back, Benny Mac goes back to the bench and doesn't really trouble the scorers all that much. For the small forwards, Nasir Little's at 3,300. He should start. He played big minutes last game. He had 17 points, and at 3,300, it's not that far away. So I don't mind him as a GPP guy. Danny House at 37, I'm really, really keen on. PJ Tucker, it's a no thanks from me. Well, it's a me, Mario Hezonja.
It's me, Mario.
Yeah, I don't think so. For the big man, Clint Capella, 77. Love it. Back in action. Let's get another 40-pointer. I think that's huge from him. While Whiteside at 6,700, also a guy that's been getting some pretty regular 40-point performances out there. So I think both Capella and Whiteside are in play. Labissiere's at 3,300. Tyson Chandler, Probably maybe he gets 10 minutes if Capella is at full go. So obviously very limited appeal there for Tyson. Let's go now. Next game up on the slate, we're looking at the Milwaukee Bucks and the Chicago Bulls. The Bucks are 7-point favorites. The total is 230 points. Zach LaVine is listed as probable. Otto Porter is out. Wendell Carter is ready to go. At point guard, Kobe White's at 53. The minutes are there with Porter out. Last game didn't shoot that well, but still had 24 DraftKings points. I like him here. LaVine at 6,900.
Giggity.
Everybody likes LaVine at 6,900. That's a strong price. And even when he struggles, he's close to putting up those numbers. While Dante DiVincenzo, the big ragu, 4,000 for DiVincenzo. Should start again for Chris Middleton, but the minutes are always the concern. So I'm not super interested there. Chris Dunn, George Hill, no. Eric Bledsoe at 72. Yeah, I reckon you will find better value point guards across the board rather than using him here. For the shooting guard, Sterlo Brown, similar story with DiVincenzo in terms of how the minutes are going to get split, while Paddy Connaughton's in that same boat. Wes Matthews and Kyle Korver also. At small forward, Gianni Antetokounmpo, 11-3. Absolutely smash that. That is a great value play for a bloke who is just dropping 60 bombs regularly. Love it. I'd have him over Harden actually on this slate. Thad Young's at 4,100. It's a no from me. And then you go down to Chandler Hutchison. That should be a no from everybody. For the big man, Lauri Markkanen is at 5,900. 36 points last game. $5,900 price tag. Those things work together. Has he figured it out? Not yet. But I feel okay about using him, especially for tournaments. Wendell Carter at 6,000. Smash that. I think he's got 40, 45 point upside here. Really big on Wendell in this matchup. While Brook Lopez at 54. Finally had a good blocks game last time out. Had 38 points in that one. Not super keen on him. I don't think he's the best center out there. Ilyasova also, of course, is not the best center out there. The next game for us to take a squiz at, we're looking at the San Antonio Spurs and the Dallas Mavericks. For the Spurs, DeJounte Murray will be back after resting the last game for a back-to-back. For the Mavericks, no injuries of note, so that's good news. Murray is down to 5,200 because, let's be honest, his last couple of games haven't been that good. There is some GPP upside. The matchup's a real positive one for him going up against the Mavericks, but his recent form hasn't been great. Luka Doncic's has. He's averaging 64 over his last 5 at 9,800. Much like Gianni, that is an absolute smash play. I like that equally to Antetokounmpo's value in this one. Delon Wright at 4,000, just trucking along, giving you 20 points a night, but it's not enough to get excited about. Like, who cares, really? Bryn Forbes, Jalen Brunson, Derek White, Maximum Derek, Seth Curry, Pat Mills. These guys will all go back and forward and alternate big games, and they're really, I don't think the upside's high enough in a tournament, and I don't think the floor's low enough, or the floor's high enough for a cash play, so I don't really see it for them. At shooting guard, DeRozan's at 71. That's a nice price for DeRozan. He hasn't been playing fantastically well. He's also been playing at that level, so I think he's okay there. Timmy Hardaway is a no from me. For the small forwards, Gay is at 5,000. I think that's too high. 4,000, Rudy Gay. Happy. Dorian Finney-Smith, 3,800 is not going to work either. And then for the big man, Kristaps Porzingis. He's at 7,500. Even when he's not shooting well, like last game, he still had 45 points. The rebounds are coming at career best rates. He's still blocking his shots. And if the shot goes in, then we're looking at 40 plus. I think he's really worth a look here. Dwight Powell and Maxi Kleber, pretty hard to trust them. While LaMarcus Aldridge, the ultimate GPP guy, he was on fire last game, 55 points. He could probably drop a 12 in this game, and I wouldn't be shocked. He has been wildly inconsistent so far this season at 7,300 tournaments and tournaments only. Next game up on the docket, we've got the Boston Celtics on a back-to-back taking on the Phoenix Suns, the thriving Phoenix Suns. Point guards, we're looking at Devin Booker, $8,000. Love it. Ravishing Rick Rubio at $7,000. Probably less interested in him at that salary. It's not a bad price, but it's not great. Well, Kemba Walker at $8,400. I think that's probably priced a little bit too high for Kemba, and the shot hasn't been falling for him. Marcus Smart up to $6,400. Again, probably just a little bit too highly priced. Brady Wanamaker, Tyler Johnson, they're not going to move my needle anywhere. Shooting guards, Jalen is at 7,700. I actually like his cash floor. Not sure about his tournament upside, but with what Brown's doing, that's okay. McCall Bridges is going to be a no from me. And then on to the small forwards. Dario small forward Saric at 5,500. Playing really well, shooting well, minutes are up, opportunities are up. I like him at that price. Cammie Johnson at 38. He's giving us 20 a night, Cam Johnson, and at 3,800 to fit in, say, a Doncic and Giannis combo, maybe you need a cheap guy, and I feel relatively okay about his level of consistency. Tatum's at 76, definitely in a hole. Weirdly, his price rose by $400, and I'm not really sure why. I think we find better options than that. But the big man, Bainesy, 5,100. Really, foul trouble has limited him the last couple of games. Production has dropped. Salary has dropped. Time to get back on board, I think, here for Bainesy. At 5,100, he can get you 30 sitting on his absolute head. Or Enes Kanter, Daniel Tice, Rob Williams. I find it really hard to get invested in any of those guys outside of a flyer type scenario if Kanter remarkably gets 27 minutes, which is not something that I really foresee happening. Well, Frank the Tank Kaminsky, his last couple of games have been pretty strong. 28 average over the last 3. I am not here to buy into that, so that's going to be a pass. Next up, the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Utah Jazz. Andy Wiggins missed the last couple for personal reasons and now is doubtful for this one due to an illness, while Shabazz Napier is doubtful. And look, Minnesota Timberwolves medical staff, PR department, this bloke pinged his hammy pretty good. And then for the last 2 weeks, you've just labelled him as doubtful every day. Just rule the bloke out for 2 weeks. You pinged your hammy, you're out 2 weeks. It is as simple. Now, I hate the way that NBA teams handle hamstrings. I think they are negligent a lot of the time. Just rule. He has been doubtful every single game for over 2 weeks. Rule the bloke out. Anyway, so Wiggins and Napier unlikely to play. Josh Okogie is questionable with a sore knee. So minutes are there for the taking. Last game, we saw Jake Layman really fluff it up. We saw Jarrett Culver's minutes. We saw Jeff Teague's minutes jump up. We saw Trevion Graham's minutes jump up. We even saw Bob Covington's minutes jump up to 33, which is good and also really, really troubling. The fact that the only thing holding back Covington's playing time was the fact that the coach didn't want to play in that. It wasn't a medical thing, because if it had been a medical thing, then his minutes wouldn't have pushed all the way up when they needed him to. So that is the real... okay, maybe there's a second level of concern that they ignored medical advice and played him more of those minutes, which again is a troubling thing. So while it's great, Covington 33 minutes, that's a great thing to see. If you dig into it, I think it's actually bad from multiple reasons, and that's a concern. 4,400 for Jarrett Culver. He's just so unexciting, I think. He just doesn't really give me that upside value or cash floor. I'm just not interested. Maybe with Wiggins out, we have somewhat of a look at him as a GPP guy, but that's about it. Donnie Mitchell's at 79. Love that. Smash that. Love the floor. Love the ceiling. Mike Conley's at 64. He's been acting like a $5,800 guy, so probably steer clear. While Jeff Teague at 56.
My name is Jeff.
I love that for Tigo. I think there's a really, really strong floor and a decent upside with all these injuries in Minnesota. Manny Moutier just really limited by the other players around. At shooting guard, Jingle and Joe, that's a huge no from me. Okogie's at 43 only for tournaments. Graham is a no. And then we move on to the small forwards. Bojan Bogdanovic at 5,800. The last few from Bogdanovic have not been great. They can obviously be better than those. I think he's probably still more of a tournament guy than anything else. Well, Covington himself at 55, again, more for tournaments. Hard to trust at this stage. For the big man, Townsy, 10-2, love it. 50 points. He gives you 50 points taking a shit in the morning when he gets out of bed. Really, that's a pretty straightforward one from him. Gobert's at 82, also been giving us a pretty comfortable 50 recently. Looks really locked in. The blocks are there, the rebounds are there, the usage is there. Love Gobert at that salary. Maybe the only reason you wouldn't want to use Towns is because he's going up against Gobert, but the last 3 times against Utah, Towns has dropped in 53 points on average, so that's pretty good value for big Karl Anthony Towns. Jakey Layman, didn't mention him. He's at 5,000. Really killed it last game. These other injuries at least give you some interest in using him, but I'm not super excited about him as an option. The last game of the day, the Oklahoma City Thunder at the LA Clippers. Chris Paul goes back to LA. Who's still revenge gaming? I don't know. Patrick Beverley is questionable with a calf, or Kawhi Leonard. Doc Rivers said he would definitely play. He said, I would, something along the lines of as close to definite as you could be. And then the official injury report came out today that Kawhi is questionable. So I think we look at him as probable questionable rather than questionable, but the official designation is questionable for Kawhi, while MC Hamadou Diallo is questionable with his knee soreness. The last time he was out, we saw big Terry Ferguson get a big chunk of minutes and put up a big line that he will never do again. At point guard, Paddy Beverley, that's a strong pass. Gilgeous Alexander, 6,300. Even in games where he seems to struggle, he gets that number. So I think he's all right at that sort of a level. Dennis Schroeder's at 52, not that keen. Lou Williams at 74. I think Lou at 74 is really a strong value pick. Also, while Chris Paul at 66, I love that for Paul. His recent games have been pretty good, averaging 36 over the last 5. So there's enough there in Chris Paul. At shooting guard, we look, if Beverly is out, Terrence Mann is a guy that can jump in there, so he'd be an option to look at. Otherwise, he's not really one to look at. Diallo, no. Rodney Magruder, Terrence Ferguson, I see no interest there. The fun guy, Kawhi Leonard, 9,300. How he integrates with Paul George, if they do indeed both play, is interesting. I like the fact that Kawhi is that cheap, so I would only look at him as a tournament guy just to work out how these shots are going to be distributed. As for George, he's at 8,100. He has dropped in 52 in his first 2 games, and he's playing just 22 minutes a night. Now, that level of usage at 46% is not going to continue with when he plays with Kawhi. 8,100, you wouldn't want to use both him and Kawhi together, I wouldn't think, but they both have some tournament upside. We don't have any word on what George's minutes restriction is going to be either here. The Italian cock, Danilo Gallinari.
Hands off my cock!
He is at 6,500, has been around that 30-point mark. I just think there are better guys you can find, while the table Montrezl Harrell has been struggling a little bit lately. 6,200, I don't mind using him here, but I also not super into it. Steve Adams, I'm the opposite of into. Nerlens Noel, Ivica Zubats. Zubats was great last time out. I just don't think at 4,600 he should be the guy that we are really getting too excited about here. Let's have a look at some FanDuel values. Aaron Holiday, I like quite a bit. Culver and Siakam. Some GPP options. Little, Marc Gasol, Harkless, Ntilikina, Batum, Jarrett Allen, John and Musa. I like Capella a lot. I like Antetokounmpo a lot. I like Miles Turner a lot on FanDuel. Same as Šarić and Whiteside. I think Kobe White at 54 also has some FanDuel appeal over there as well. Don't forget, subscribe to this podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and on YouTube. And if you want to check out any of the sponsored deals on this show, head to lockedonpodcasts.com/offers, and you can see all the details there. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Damari Carroll.